Alright, we're going to start off at number 10 now with plastic surgery. Now, I'm sure you've all seen those horror stories of when plastic surgery goes wrong. Altering a person's appearance is an expensive and complicated procedure that requires proper medical training for the surgeon. Unfortunately, there are more people out there who want it than can afford it done properly, which is where the black market steps in. For a discount price, people who want plastic surgery can hire a non-qualified back alley surgeon to operate on them, often resulting in horrific or even fatal results. Some people even buy silicone straight off the black market and inject it into themselves. More often than not, it ruins their body and potentially their lives, and unfortunately, you can't sue the black market. Well, you can try. I don't think they have a lawyer. Next up at number 9 now, we have human body parts. I wish this one wasn't true, but it really is. The organs inside your body are worth quite a lot. I'm sure many of you have heard about organ waiting lists. If someone has a failing organ, they have to hope that the death of an organ donor will mean that they get a healthy replacement organ. There have been investigations into some extremely poor parts of the world where people line up to have their kidneys removed in exchange for about $5,000. Many of them don't want to do it, obviously, but are driven to by poverty. On the other hand, the middleman charges the buyers of the kidney far more money than that, essentially making them rich off other people's desperation and exploiting their body in every sense of the word. Moving on to number 8 now, we have weapons. Yes, guns are legal to buy in some countries like the US, but there are always laws governing which type of guns can be bought and who can own them. The black market doesn't care about that. Guns and bombs have been sold on the black market from shady dealers to hardened criminals. But for many people, a bigger concern is bombs ending up in the hands of criminals and terrorists. The people selling them these bombs know they will likely end up hurting innocent civilians, but for a price, they just won't care. Alright, coming in at number 7 now, we have pets. It's no secret that some pets are illegal to own, either for their own safety or for the public's. Rare birds, reptiles, cats, or certain breeds of dogs are smuggled across international borders. Their owners then pay tens of thousands of dollars for them, thus funding the international network of poachers who make a living from catching these animals. Alright, at the number 6 spot now, we have devil's breath. It's often called the world's scariest drug, and after looking at what it does to people, I think I might have to agree. Its real name is scopolamine, and it's used by criminals to wipe people's memories and turn them into sort of living zombies. The drug originates from Colombia, where criminals there have been giving it to people, often without them even knowing, and then using the victim's lack of free will to convince them to do things like empty their bank accounts or hand over the keys to their apartments and cars. The victims then sober up 2 or 3 days later with no possessions or knowledge of what happened to them. One of the scariest things about this drug is that it's tasteless and odorless, making it very hard to detect. Police are trying to crack down on it, but the black market continues to produce this dangerous drug for the right price. At number 5 now, we have sperm. Yes, believe it or not, a man's sperm can be bought and sold on the black market. One example was in 2010 when police in the UK busted a sperm scheme operated out of a basement. The two men were connecting women with anonymous sperm donors for £445 a go. That's about $600 US. They would even give the women the sperm and a syringe so they could perform self-insemination. For everything you find gross about this whole operation, there is also something highly illegal about it. Okay, next up at number 4 now, we have uranium. This radioactive element is often used in nuclear power plants. If a human is exposed to it, it can result in both chemical and radiological toxicity. For these reasons, uranium is handled by governments and special personnel, and public everyday use of this is totally illegal. That doesn't stop people buying and selling it on the black market though, putting themselves and those around them in severe danger. Moving on to number 3 now, we have fake degrees. A degree is supposed to be the absolute proof that a person has passed a course or is qualified to do a certain job. They can be used to get high paying jobs, and for some people that don't have them, faking one is their next best option. There have been many stories of people working their way through life using fake degrees. All of this is of course illegal, but often pretty harmless. Sometimes though, fake doctors will treat people for years who trust them only for them to find out their degree was a total fake. Maybe you guys go and check that your doctor's degree is real. Actually, don't do that. It's really offensive now that I think about it. Coming at number 2 now, we have human skulls. I don't know how people get their hands on human skulls, but somehow they always do. Of course, course, they can be legally obtained. If you're a biologist studying the human body or teaching anatomy to college students, you may end up with a skull from somebody who donated their body to science. However, there are strict procedures that govern where these skulls come from, and quite often skulls end up for sale that did not come from a legal source. Those skulls can be found on the black market, where weird people who somehow acquire human skulls sell them to even weirder customers who are just happy having a stranger's skull sit on their shelf. Or maybe it would be weirder to have someone you know. And finally, number 1, we have people. There are more slaves alive today than at any other point in human history. Human trafficking is a serious global problem. Some estimates put the money involved in the buying and selling of human beings at an astonishing $32 billion a year. Some organizations have concluded that a mind-blowing 2.4 million people in the world are being trapped, sold, and transported for profit. 2.4 million people. That's about the population of Houston, Texas. Those people are not free to leave where they currently are. Whether it be cultural taboos such as mail order brides and prostitutes, or serious human rights abuses such as child laborers, the black market profits off their suffering. Starting off at number 10 now, we have moon dust. In 2011, a strange item went on sale at an auction house in St. Louis. Some dust from the moon. Fake, right? Obviously. Well, NASA confirmed it was real. Investigators believe the dust, about the size of a fingerprint, was taken off a film cartridge used by astronauts on the very first trip to the moon in 1969. The dust was then put onto a piece of clear tape and then disappeared before resurfacing at this auction house. They estimate these few specks alone could be worth as much as $1,500. Next up at number 9, we have human hair. Hair extensions and wigs are a huge global business. A lot of them are synthetic, but for some people, only real hair is good enough. That means it has to come from real people. Now, a lot of that hair is ethically sourced, but some is far from that. In places like India, many women in small villages find that selling their hair is really the only way to survive. They don't receive a fair amount for their hair. Even worse, a 2006 report found that some husbands were forcing their wives into selling their hair, while slum children were being tricked into having their head shaved in exchange for toys. Next up at number 8 now, we have fake IDs. When I say fake IDs, what are you guys thinking of? Probably teenagers trying to buy alcohol before they're actually allowed to. However, on the black market, there's a lot more serious fake IDs being handed out. For a certain price, people can buy fake passports for pretty much any country in the whole world. This can help criminals get into countries they're not allowed to, and even give them whole new identities. There's even been cases of people buying police badges so that they can pose as cops and get away with some really serious crimes. Moving on to number 7, we have sea cucumbers. These marine creatures may not be the prettiest things in the ocean, but they are quickly becoming one of the most valuable. Many countries in Asia and around the world see them as a tasty delicacy to eat, leading to massive overfishing of them. So, the people search elsewhere. This has led to huge illegal operations in places like the US to harvest sea cucumbers there. Prices can now reach up to $500 or more for just a single kilogram of dried sea cucumber. Normal cucumbers are still pretty cheap though. Coming at number 6 now, we have rhino horns. For thousands of years, many traditional Asian medicines have seen rhino horns as the key to curing a number of different diseases. In countries like Vietnam, 1 kilogram of the stuff can now fetch up to $100,000. As long as people are prepared to pay that kind of money, there will always be poachers willing to risk it and hunt the rhinos in their native Africa. It's always good to see pictures like this of police seizing the smugglers' rhino horns, but quite disturbing to think that each one of them came from a living rhino. Next up at number 5 now, we have crude oil. Oil is something we think of as belonging to big companies or governments, trading it for billions and billions of dollars. Sometimes though, black market thieves can get their hands on just a few dozen barrels. In 2010, there were 712 of these pipeline thefts in Mexico alone. Each barrel of the stuff can end up selling for over $100, making the criminals very rich and even more willing to keep stealing it. Alright, here's a weird one next. At number 4, we have how-tos. How-to videos are all over YouTube, but on the black market, they're sold in the form of ebooks, and quite often they're a lot weirder. There are ATM hacking tutorials that teach you how to withdraw 20 from a cash point but get 80. There are guides for how to make MDMA for just $1.50, or how to get free pizza in the UK. For $1, you can buy the ultimate guide to texting girls, or even the essential underground handbook of secret informations for just $5. It all sounds very strange, but hey, I guess you can't argue with those prices. Coming at number 3 now, we have official uniforms. So we talked about fake IDs a little while earlier, when people try and pretend to be someone they're not. Well, this is kind of one step further, just having the full legit uniform. There is a whole section of the black market that has real police, pilot or flight attendant uniforms. Some of these will be sold to people who just want to make their bedroom role-playing more authentic, but others can be more sinister. If someone gets their hands on a real police uniform and a real police ID, how do you know they're not the real thing? Coming at number 2 now, we have the old bomb. It's no secret that dangerous modern weapons are traded illegally on the black market, but what about old ones? Check this out. The seller claims this is an unexploded World War I shrapnel shell bomb. That means this thing could potentially explode at any given moment. That wouldn't be too surprising considering it's probably over 100 years old. You're essentially buying something that could kill you at any given moment, and that's probably why it's on the black market. And finally, number 1, we have social security. In many countries, your social security number is essentially what lets you participate in society. You'll need it for jobs, bank accounts, licenses, loans and background checks. The number is totally unique to you. Well, on the black market, people sell social security numbers. Why? Well, banks will often attach a credit score rating to your social security number. This could be the difference between getting a bank loan or not. So, people are very eager to get their hands on a social security number that has a good credit score. The only worrying question left is, how did they get someone else's social security number in the first place? Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Boston Marathon bibs. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Boston Marathon of 2013 was scarred by a tragic terror event that killed 3 people, injured thousands, with 16 people losing some limbs to a bomb attack. Somehow, official race bibs from that fateful day have found their way onto the black market. These grisly souvenirs are now being sold on the black market for as much as $5,000 each. Some say that's quite disturbing, other people say it's just a reminder of a notable event. What do you guys think? Next up at number 9 now, we have prescription drugs. As you can probably tell from the name, these drugs are prescribed by medical professionals. You're not supposed to get your hands on them without that. Despite strict controls, thefts or corruption means that these drugs find their way onto the black market somehow. A USA Today report found that 5 million Americans were abusing narcotic painkillers such as oxycodone. This epidemic results in thousands of deaths a year in the US alone. Moving on to number 8 now, we have assassination guns. Now, we've talked about weapons in general in a previous video, but this is a very specific type of weapon. Assassination guns are sold on the black market with very specific designs. They can only fire a single shot and are disguised to look like everyday objects such as a pen or a stapler. This is especially worrying for police because the guns are almost indistinguishable from ordinary everyday items until someone gets killed by one of them. At number 7 now, we have Uber accounts. Through hacking or perhaps just leaking, people's Uber account details often find their way online and onto the black market. Many people will simply cancel their Uber account as soon as they feel that it's been compromised. That's why people on the black market will sell the account in packages of 10 for around $15. One of those unlucky people may wake up to a very expensive Uber charge on their card one day. Moving on to number 6 now, we have credit card numbers. On the dark web, you can find sites that sell hundreds of credit card numbers in bulk at very low prices. Now, you might be thinking, why does a criminal need hundreds of credit card numbers? Surely just a few would do if they want to avoid detection. The reason is because of cancellations. By the time these stolen credit cards have their numbers put on the black market, many people will have already cancelled the account. This means that criminals will have to buy a lot if they want to hit the jackpot. Next up at number 5 now, we have holy water. A BBC investigation found that bottled water from a well in Mecca, Islam's holiest site, contained dangerous levels of arsenic. This water is then being shipped around the world to places like the UK. Authorities there have been left in a bit of a tricky situation. They are trying to crack down on this potentially dangerous liquid, which is held as deeply sacred by the people who brought it into the country. This may be forcing large quantities of it onto the black market in order to avoid detection. Alright, next up at the number 4 spot now, we have baby formula. It may seem crazy, but this is one of the most shoplifted products in America. In 2009, Florida authorities arrested 21 people in a theft ring that was making more than $2 million from trading in baby formula. Thieves were paid about $200 a day to steal it from stores, which was then repackaged and sold in other states. This is mainly because baby formula is notoriously expensive, and some parents are willing to buy the stolen goods for the reduced price it comes with without knowing who or what has handled it. Another worrying trend is that baby formula is being used to cut drugs such as methamphetamines and heroin. Alright, at the number 3 spot now guys, we have 3D printed guns. For many years, police have only had to look out for physical guns being smuggled across actual borders. With the rise of 3D printing though, a new problem has emerged. Criminals can buy the schematics for almost any gun on the dark web and then make a plastic but still legitimate gun that can kill someone from their 3D printer. This type of weapons dealing is a lot harder to stop, which is why it's becoming such a growing commodity on the black market. Alright, moving on to the number 2 spot now, we have milk. Yes, this is a strange one. In the US, unpasteurized milk is illegal in many states, with the FDA citing health concerns such as E. coli and salmonella. This has forced unpasteurized milk onto the black market, with gallons of the stuff changing hands out of reach from the authorities. That's right, you may think drug smuggling was a real problem. Well, how about milk smuggling? This is now the world we live in. And finally now, at number 1, it's a sad one, we have tiger parts. Tigers are an endangered species, but thanks to conservation efforts over the years, their numbers are starting to slowly rise in the wild. Part of the battle is against poachers who will kill and dismember tigers in Asia in order to sell them on the black market. A number of countries there either use the parts in medicine or for luxury consumables such as tiger bone wine. That's right, wine made from actual tiger body parts. This has also led to the rise of tiger farms in China, with the animals being specifically bred for their bodies.